using that superpower for the most malicious, evil way possible. And unfortunately, what happens with so many of these streamers and these people that are just assholes in public, you end up burning that bridge. They have controversial people, it will bring in more viewership, and then probably more people will end up going over to Seth in the process. But at the same time, if they have someone that's too controversial, they need a man. And that's why Leon is so interesting, because he always borders this blind line, because he does so much irredeemable shit. But it's not, it's not, you know, for example, that riot guy who has like pictures of underage people naked on his phone. Leon's never done that, so he can't be banned, right? Obviously, everyone's now aware of the deal that Kick had with XQC, where he got $100 million, which was, you know, advertised as being $100 million, which is a lot of money. But I think it's came to light recently that most of that money, or at least a huge chunk of it, was actually shares in Kick. It wasn't just a direct transaction, but they wanted it to be spread around that it was 100 million to make it look like, wow, they've got a lot of money to play with. And then obviously when XQC booted up his stream, one of the first things he did on the contract was just watch the entirety of The Dark Knight. And then he basically got told by the mods, you can't do that. You can't just watch an entire film of chat and not add anything. That is a huge DMCA and possible lawsuit. I really wish I could reach the point as a monolithic streamer where I don't even have to like make or post any content. I could just go on the entirety of Oppenheimer and just have chat watch it like it's some kind of like pseudo daycare. Also, I do want to point out in that Dark Knight clip video, it is old. I know I'm bringing up something from like, you know, basically a year ago, but I do find it kind of funny that the mods only told him to stop when he was over halfway through a 3-hour film. Now, back to the main course. Neon streaming with another Kick streamer, Squeeze, where they're just speeding down the highway, clearly breaking the law like absolute degenerates. And as of recording this video, I have checked Neon's Kick account. It is still fully up and running. Apparently he wasn't even told off for being naughty. I imagine he was sat down and he was like, okay, you speed, that's kind of bad, but like, you know, it's like GTA, right? Like, we go past the red lights sometimes, you know? It's okay. Just don't do it again. Now, I do want to focus a little bit on Squeeze, because Neon is sat there being a react and he'd be like, whoa, the best thing about that as well, I have seen on like TikTok and YouTube Shorts and Instagram Reels clips of Neon sat with this guy speeding, and the footage, even though he's going like well over the speed limit, that's apparently still not engaging in the content, and the clippers are worried that people are going to scroll past anyway. So you will have like the top clip be Neon speeding down the highway, and the clip below will just be like GTA gameplay of another car speeding, or Subway Surfers. It's usually always Subway Surfers. Now Squeeze, the guy sat next to Neon, that isn't his real name. It's like a little anonymous way we're going to refer to him as. Squeeze is basically someone who records himself driving down highways incredibly quickly. Plot twist, it's usually above the legal limit. Now, a lot of you will probably come into his defense saying, well, that's probably just because you don't have a car, sweetie. I can drive. I got my license at like 18, but if I got behind the wheel of a car now, I would probably run someone over. Now, the funny thing is about this Squeeze guy, he might have realized that the bad hammer was coming for him. He was almost like teamed up with Neon to get some kind of immunity, because anything Neon does, the most he gets banned for is basically a day. So it's almost like Neon is this complete, you know, -1 IQ moron, but he's just like a ban evasion shield. Now, I do want to say Squeeze is making an absolute hustle of this as well, of this whole situation. Most people would probably put their heads down, you know, put their head in the sand for a little bit, like for it to all die down until, you know, the last group fell to Reddit just ends up posting forms again or something. But instead, he is starting to release merch. This is a limited drop, what will be available to the end of the week. And then you've got a picture of Neon. I'm very sure this guy is the definition of graphic design is my passion. Guys, selling them as stickers. Now, Squeeze also posts a lot of Instagram stories. I'll show some here, and it's really weird because he has a decently sized audience, and he usually promotes, you know, this like cheap crap that you can buy, just like really weird plugs. So he's clearly someone that's proud of what he does. He's proud of the reputation he's got for like frequently breaking the law. And I know I'm in the old man sat in my rocking chair waving my walking stick right now, being do that, people breaking the law. That's very naughty. I know I'm giving off that kind of old man boomer energy, but it is illegal. And more importantly, in situations like this, they usually don't stop until there is a very serious collision, and then the tears come out, and then it's, oh, I shouldn't have done this, I'm so sorry. You know, they keep breaking the law, going well up the speed limit for clip farming content, and no one gets hurt in their lifetime. Very low chance of that happening, but fair enough, congratulations. You played on the slot machine, and you won, which is something Kick very, very much likes at the minute. But obviously going over the limit, there's a high chance that, you know, you have some kind of collision, you could hit someone, that could be a very serious injury, maybe even a fatality. This is coming from someone that hasn't driven a car in like 8 years, by the way. But I remember in the UK, you had these public service service announcements, these PSAs on thick, that made you basically become more aware of like speeding and the dangers of it. And I feel like it's affected me a bit because I feel like very personal talking about this topic because it's utterly insane. What absolutely horrible. I remember this one advert of a guy trying to sleep at night, and then he looks and he sees like the body of a child basically blocking his door. And this is like a kid he accidentally ran over years ago, and he's basically trying to tell you that that kid now lives like rent-free in his head. That is not the right word I should have said for that, but it's technically the truth. The kid basically lives rent-free in his head because he just can't get over the trauma. I also remember this as a kid as well. A lot of areas you go around in the UK, like residential areas, usually you can only drive around 30 miles an hour, which is like relatively slow. But that's because they did studies around it. They basically found out that if you hit someone going 30 miles an hour, there's like an 80% chance that they'll live. Another thing to point out as well with Squeeze, like the situation with Neon and many other clips that he posts, they're not actually his car. It's usually the other person sat in the passenger seat or a car that's basically blown out. I didn't realize that your long-term rentals just to leave it around. Driving down a motorway incredibly quickly, it's probably fun. It probably puts some hairs on your chest. You get, you know, the little Spider-Man goosebumps. But again, just like, I don't know, bro, just go load up GTA 4 and do a street race with Brucey or something. Now, obviously, a lot of street racers, they make a lot of money through merchandise and sponsorships, which is exactly what Squeeze is doing. The main problem I have with this, though, is most of the promos that Squeeze is doing are just like, you know, basically random scammers that he's selling Instagram promos to. You know those gimmick accounts that just post like the most inane, boring content and it juices, and then randomly they'll start selling like, you know, like a lava lamp or sex chocolate or something? They're being paid to do that. Like I actually get DMs on my Twitter of people saying, can you promote this Duolingo for me? We'll pay you $20.
Okay. I'm not gonna sleep. Yeah, that's fine. You're welcome.
There was an accident at the end of the stream and Squeeze quickly fled the signal, which is pretty funny because if anything it was parallel to another situation I talked about a couple weeks ago with HS Tiki driving this car incredibly high speeds, and then he crashed the car, and then he basically abandoned his mate, General G, and then fled to Dubai and did a music video about it. Squeeze then quickly did an Instagram follow-up story saying, "Damn bro, this shit with shock, and now somebody hitting into the back of me. I think I've done linking up with mad cars that don't know how to drive. This is why I don't do this." And then basically shows, you know, injury on the bumper. It's nothing severe, but again, it could have ended up being incredibly worse. It could have ended up being a flat accident. It wasn't hit and run. We know who hit us and took off with us. No cuts at all, not a hit and run. I also want to give credit to H3 this podcast because they actually managed to pull the Instagram stories before Squeeze released them. By the time I'm recording this video, it's all been new. It's all been a big cover-up. Now, thankfully, Squeeze on the rear bumper, the same that can't be said for the other car. I can't show the video because every single video I find is against it. So this is a screenshot of the airbags being put up. It is not a good sign. They definitely took the front of the door. It looks good. That's a big problem with like the whole streaming culture, and it's very easy to blend it and quick to kind of perpetuate it a fair bit. But a lot of these streamers do feel like they're easily used because guaranteed it's probably everyone's going to be clever because he didn't feel like he's done anything wrong. I mean, he was a passenger in, you know, another instance. But again, Neon is that rare example of not one thing he's done that's ban-worthy, but I feel like intuitively it is ban-worthy. But the reason why he will never be banned is because on the level of that right and when exposed for having nukes on his phone. It's because unfortunately, I've made, you know, this incredibly long videos looking into detail of like generosity on kids, but people like Neon, until they do something really out of pocket, which legendary for he doesn't work for times. He will never get banned. He's and it's going to be a vicious cycle that constantly repeats. Every couple of weeks, Leon will get dragged into doing something or getting something. Critical or make an 8-minute video, I'll make a long video explaining what the difference is another video, but nothing will change. And the funny thing is about this whole Neon situation is he got banned. He got literally a day ban, which out of all people, was actually saying this stupid. Why does he only get the job back? It wouldn't quite be if Leon probably got dropped that night to celebrate and basically dealt with the hangover the next day while he was coming to ban. Like him getting a ban is basically a day off. Yeah, Aiden basically went off on him basically showing how, other people got a week ban for what he supposed to be, less things, but Leon only got a day.
Leon got a 1-day ban from this, and it was like, Peter got a week ban, Sweater got a week ban, for something not as nearly as crazy as this.
I really think it's fine as a thing that we're doing with Aiden's off. I do also like how his IQ was so low that he was like, I don't fuck with this guy. It was not entertaining.
I did watch these guys do I fuck with what he does? No, but like it's entertaining. I was watching last night for him.
Yeah, cool. What's the role with him?
Good times, bad times. What a blast! Good wine, good friends. Who needs anything else?